Hello, and thanks for joining us. This is the back of Toby's head, since by popular demand, I put him on the desk before he actually attacked me. We are, if you're just joining us for the first time now, doing this every day, 3 o'clock on weekdays, not weekends yet, at least. And we are, it's really an experiment. We're doing our best to sort of work out some technical kinks, so bear with us. But we think our game is getting tighter. Sorry, the cat is now actually attacking me. What else should I tell you? At the end of it, if you have a minute, if you could fill out the survey that we posted in the video description on YouTube, that would be amazing, because we're really trying to figure out how to get better at this. What else do I want to tell you? Oh, yeah. I want to introduce you to our teacher today. She's an up-and-coming meditation teacher by the name of Sharon Salzberg. She's new to the game. No, she is a pioneer in bringing meditation to the West, and a friend and a teacher of mine, somebody I look up to. So Sharon, thank you very much for coming on.
It's a great delight to be here. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's so great.
My pleasure. And you are beaming into us from Barre, Massachusetts.
Barre, Massachusetts, from my house. Yeah.
Barre, Massachusetts, Central Massachusetts, where the legendary Insight Meditation Society, which you co-founded in the 70s, is based. And so how are you doing in the midst of all of this craziness?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, my mantra is, I am so glad I have tools. I'm so grateful to have some tools, because of course I get anxious. Yesterday I had like a big bout of sadness, just like sorrow, and the kind of metabolism of the change is so fast. It's so intense. I mean, really, you can hardly catch your breath. So even reminding myself, just breathe, just take a breath, has been really fortunate.
I think it's a relief for me to hear you say that you're dealing with sadness, and I think it's gonna be a relief for a lot of people to hear that. And before we came on the show today, I was chatting with you and Jessica, our producer, about the fact that I've been dealing with this too. I've been alone in this apartment because my wife and son are upstate for most of this week, and really watching how not having face-to-face social interactions other than with felines can be really painful. And there have been moments where I've gotten depressed. And something that's been quite meaningful for me is that I have an 85-year-old neighbor, Naomi. I don't know if she's watching, but I think she does actually watch some of these. And we've been meeting up in the evenings, setting up chairs on opposite sides of the hallway, so we're socially distanced, and chatting and meditating together. So I've said for years, because I've seen the science, that loneliness is incredibly threatening from a physiological and psychological standpoint, but now I'm really seeing it in real time.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even, I've also said for years, because it fascinates me that even before this, that, people were saying there's like an epidemic of loneliness growing, and that meditation, which seems like such a solitary activity and even cut off, which is a mistaken notion, but people do think that, is so much about connection, and that even though you're doing it all alone, it's fostering the sense of connection with others as well. So again, I'm just so grateful that I went to India all those years ago,
Yeah, you were part of that small group of Americans who went over to India, learned how to meditate, and then came back and taught the rest of us. So I'm grateful that you went too, because if you hadn't gone, I wouldn't be here. So let's speaking of meditation, shall we do some?
Definitely. Thank you. Okay, so if you want to sit comfortably, close your eyes or not, however you feel most at ease, it's fine. See if you can find the place where your breath is clearest to you or strongest for you. Maybe that's the nostrils or the chest or the abdomen. And just rest your attention there. The word is rest. It's just the normal, natural breath. You can let it be, you can let it change. And it's just one breath. And then the next. you see your attention hurtling into the past or into the future, take a deeper breath for a moment. Just relax. Come back. If you find yourself lost in thought, spun out in a fantasy, or if you fall asleep, don't worry about it. The most important moment, we say, in the whole process is the next moment, after you've been gone, after you've been lost, after you've felt overwhelmed. Okay, what do we do next? Can we let go gently? And then with great compassion for ourselves, come back. You don't have to berate yourself for what you're feeling. You don't have to judge yourself for whatever happens. We realize we've gotten lost in some way, disconnected. We let go and we begin again. We say that the healing is in the return, not in never having wandered to begin with. It's okay. I find that the most amazing thing, wherever our attention goes, we can come back. You can notice the tone of voice in which you speak to yourself. And if it's harsh or punitive, see if you can relax. Remember gentleness, remember kindness. You haven't lost anything, you haven't ruined anything. You can always start over. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes or lift your gaze and end the session.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. It's interesting, not surprising, but I haven't. Today's been sort of crazy. Just I've been go 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 from 8 in the morning, and I haven't had any time to meditate. And even just that little 5 minutes just stops. It's like a circuit breaker on all of the insanity in here. So I appreciate that. let's go to the questions. Linda Spiegelt. The thought of not being able to hang out with my grandkids is making me so sad. I normally see them a few times a week, and FaceTime makes me want to hold them. I'm fighting sadness. How can we work with that? Great question. And I'm sorry you're sad, Linda.
Well, one of the sayings that I use a lot is we feel what we feel. You know, the idea of fighting sadness is maybe could be reframed, you know, so it's not so hard on oneself. If I look back at my meditation life, like I remember this one early teacher of mine, this man named Manindra, who would say things to me like, why are you blaming yourself for what you're feeling or what you're thinking? Like, did you invite that thought? Did you say at 3:15, I'd like to be filled with self-hatred or, you know, dislike? No, but when conditions come together for something to arise, it will arise. And can we affect those conditions? Definitely. But we can't control them, you know, and through my many years of teaching now, I just see people, often all of us, being so hard on ourselves. I shouldn't feel this. It should have gone away long ago. I've been meditating too long to have this come up, or, you know, I knew I needed a different therapist. It's been so, you know, so long and so much money, and I still feel this. And, you know, but really when conditions come together for something to arise, it will arise. So as we look at conditions, you know, which is also helpful to do, the main thing is how are we relating to that sadness or that fear or whatever emotion may be coming up? Are we adding to it, you know? Are we actually isolating ourselves because of it? Like, I'm the only one who ever feels this. Or are we blaming ourselves? Or can we actually practice? I know it's hard, but it's amazingly liberating, I find, you know, practice being with the feeling and having compassion for ourselves anyway.
We've been talking about it on this live stream all week. That's one of the huge radical moves of meditation. Instead of fighting or feeding the thing, you're actually just hanging out with it. Mm-hmm. And that has a way of declawing, defanging the demon. So let me move on to another question here from Phoenix. I think that's the name of the questioner, not the location of the questioner. The question is how to practice loving kindness toward those who are willfully, even pridefully putting so many at risk in such dangerous times. It's hard to find compassion for those who show none. I'm thinking of the pictures of the kids on spring break. Yeah, it's frustrating to see. So how can we generate friendliness or goodwill toward people that we think are endangering public health?
Yeah, and sometimes I should have you answer that now that you're the loving kindness maven. You know, I mean, it's hard, let's face it. And I think it's not good to ever have that idea of like a should, you know, or like I'm imperfect because I'm not awash with love for these crazy kids who are, you know, making it so I might not be able to leave my house for a long time. It's not like that, you know, but the most important recipient in some ways is ourselves. And that includes a kind of compassion for ourselves, because I think what we see is that when we're reckless ourselves, or when we hurt somebody else, or in, you know, small ways perhaps, but nonetheless real ways, it's coming from a place of pain within ourselves. And like, there's a way of looking at, say, those photos and thinking, talk about disconnection, you know, and a sense of otherness. Like the whole world is like an other when we're really lost in that. And there's a kind of compassion for that pain that isn't, and some of it, of course, the problem is that it's so hard to understand what loving kindness and compassion are. That doesn't mean you approve or you don't care or you're giving in or you like or you want to have them for dinner or anything like that, you know. But there's some recognition of that pain that I think is very possible.
Yeah, I mean, part of it for me is I also look at, you know, people on the beach playing drinking games and think, well, you know, when I was that age, would I have been smart enough to do that? And you can even just start there. Great question coming in from Roxana Cheney. How can I deal with all of this change that is occurring?
It is crazy. I mean, I understand that. And for me, it's like it's the rapidity of the change or the intensity of the change. It feels like 1,000 years ago and just yesterday we were talking about just wash your hands a lot, and all of a sudden it's like institutions are closing and events are canceling and people are isolating, but it's so quick. And that's where, honestly, I use tools like the breath, because what I find is that in rapid change, it's like a cascade. My energy just gets lost in kind of future orientation. And I, cease to be grounded or present or actually even aware of what's going on right now, because it's so cloudy just to do that. And so when I feel kind of caught up in that momentum of tremendous change, I just try to breathe and come back. And I think the lesson I've gotten and that I talk about so often in meditation is the one I talked about here, like we can begin again. You will get lost. You'll freak out. It's too much. You don't know how to navigate it. And then you can begin again. It's like, okay, I'm here.
This is something I've been, I talked about getting lonely and feeling a little depressed, but I've also had, so there's depression and then there's anxiety, and anxiety is future oriented concerns. And I've experienced a lot of that too, especially around the health of friends and family who are elders, including my parents, and also the economy. And I was talking to a friend of mine today has a partner who's very sick and dying. And we were talking about his personal experience in the context of all that's going on with the coronavirus. And he said, it feels like the world is catching up to where my partner and I have been on this experience of groundlessness. And that is, we can build as many structures around us, bank accounts, careers, physical fitness, but the law of the universe is perpetual change, and there is no solid ground, and it's really uncomfortable when you have to see that.
It is. And yet it's always been true, as you say. And so I never feel that like getting more in harmony with the truth is going to be harmful. It's scary right now, because of the intensity and the rapidity of the change. But also something I often say is that when I have sat in meditation and looked at my own fear, which isn't, it's training, like, it's not that easy to do, but it means learning not to get so lost in it and also not punishing myself for it. What I've seen is that, unlike the world's pronouncement, which is also true, that we're afraid of the unknown, I get afraid when I think I do know, and it's going to be really bad. And so the stories I start spinning, that's when I freak out. And that was an amazing thing for me to see, because, of course, it's not just in a meditative posture. I do that. And when I see myself in that arc of anxiety, if I remind myself, you know what, you don't know, that's actually reassuring to me. I feel space opens up.
Right.
And possibility returns.
That is so valuable for me to hear right now, because it's unknown is actually, if you're paying attention, truly not knowing is a lot less uncomfortable than thinking and having this phantasmagoric projection into the future in which all sorts of awful things are happening. Mm-hmm. So we only have just a couple minutes left, but there's a question that came in from Laura Lee Osborne about this very issue, and so maybe we can put a fine point on this. Her question is, how can my husband and I work with the panic of losing our jobs on top of the pandemic?
Well, I think there's also a difference between rightful fear and panic. And I would use every tool available to reground and come back to the present. Remember what we don't know, because there may be things you need to do. And when we're just swamped and overcome in a state of panic, it's like we don't see any options. We can't listen. We feel increasingly isolated, and it's just not that healthy. So, again, out of kindness to yourself, not because you feel you're being bad or weak or it's the wrong thing to feel. It's a kind of obvious thing to feel. Use the tools you have and increase those tools, perhaps, to kind of come back and still maybe feel fear, of course, but not into the panic.
Well said. And just in terms of keeping your crap together in this moment, I would just add there are some other sort of annoyingly obvious basics that we can sometimes forget. Sleep, social interaction, even if it's just on FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, eating well, exercising, and depending on what your physical condition is, exercise could be just taking a walk. These things, which are annoying because we've heard them a million times, are worth doing, and especially right now. As we leave, I just want to point out that a couple of items of business. Tomorrow, we've got another up and coming meditation teacher by the name of Jack Cornfield. I'm kidding. He is like Sharon, one of the OGs who went to India back in the 60s and 70s and then helped bring the practice here to the United States. And he, along with Sharon and Joseph Goldstein, co-founded the Insight Meditation Society in the 70s. Another thing is a couple favors you could do us if you've got a moment. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we put a survey in the show description. If you could click on that, it's like a 1 or 2 minute thing. We'd love to hear your feedback. Another thing is, if you're enjoying this, please spread the word, because we want to bring in as many people as possible. And then finally, I know I'm asking a lot of favors here, but if you could subscribe to the 10% Happier YouTube channel, that would be awesome. And then I've got another note here from the team. We've been getting a lot of questions and requests from parents about coping with kids and helping kids cope. So I want to point out that we just yesterday posted a podcast with an extraordinary human being named Susan Kaiser Greenland. The podcast is called Parenting in a Pandemic, and she has a whole range of practical tips for children at all ages, from young kids to teenagers. She's got tips for meditation for parents, and she's got great ideas for how parents can not commit homicide in the middle of all of this in terms of dealing with one another. And she's also, on top of being super practical, just really genuinely wise. So that was a lot of fun to talk to her. Go check that out. Sharon, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.